The cold vastness of space surrounded the 5 human ships as they pushed deeper into unknown territory. Commander Alan Blackwood sat in his chair on the bridge of the Frontier Spirit, watching the stars on the main view screen. This was the furthest any human expedition had ever traveled, and he felt both pride and responsibility weighing on his shoulders. "Commander, I'm picking up unusual energy readings," said Lieutenant Olivia Martinez from her communication station. Her fingers moved quickly across the glowing control panel. Multiple objects approaching at high speed. Blackwood nodded calmly. "Put it on screen, Lieutenant." The view screen shifted to show 30 massive ships appearing from what looked like tears in space. They were angular and threatening, covered in what appeared to be weapon arrays. The ships formed a circle around the small human fleet. "Well, that's certainly a welcome party," Blackwood said with a slight smile. "Open a channel, Martinez. Let's say hello to our new friends." Before Martinez could establish contact, the largest of the alien ships sent a transmission. The view screen changed to show a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 eyes and an elaborate uniform covered in medals and symbols of rank. "Attention, unknown vessels. I am Admiral Zurax of the Taxian Empire, rulers of 17 star systems and masters of this galactic arm. You have violated Imperial space and will surrender immediately or face destruction." Blackwood and Martinez exchanged glances. Martinez covered her mouth to hide a smile. "This is Commander Alan Blackwood of the Earth vessel Frontier Spirit. We're on a peaceful exploration mission and weren't aware this region belonged to anyone. We're happy to discuss diplomatic relations." Admiral Zurax's upper eyes narrowed. "There is nothing to discuss. Your primitive vessels are clearly no match for the might of our Imperial fleet. Surrender now, and your crews may be permitted to live as servants of the Empire." Chief Engineer Greg Sullivan walked onto the bridge in time to hear this. He snorted with amusement. "Primitive? Has he taken a look at his own ships?" Blackwood motioned for Sullivan to be quiet. "Admiral, perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. We haven't come to challenge anyone's authority. We're scientists and explorers." "Your behavior is puzzling," Zurax replied. "Either you are insane or exceptionally brave. It matters not. You will learn respect for the Taxian Empire." He turned to someone off-screen. "Fire a warning shot. Target their lead vessel's propulsion system." The transmission ended. On the view screen, they watched as the largest alien ship's front section glowed with building energy. "Should we take evasive action?" "Commander?" asked the pilot, Joey Franklin, his hand hovering over the controls. Blackwood leaned back in his chair. "No need, Franklin. Our shields can handle whatever they're about to throw at us." Dr. Catherine Bell, the fleet's chief scientist, entered the bridge and glanced at the readings on a nearby screen. "Interesting, they're using a particle beam weapon, but the energy signature is remarkably inefficient. It's like they developed the technology but stopped refining it centuries ago." Everyone on the bridge watched as a bright beam of energy shot from the Taxian flagship toward the Frontier Spirit. When it hit the invisible shield surrounding the human ship, it spread out like water hitting glass, dissipating harmlessly in a display of colorful light. Martinez couldn't help but laugh. "That's their idea of a weapon?" Sullivan checked his engineering console. Shield integrity at 99.8%, that barely registered. On the view screen, they could see confusion on the Taxian flagship's bridge. Admiral Zurax was gesturing angrily at his officers. Another transmission came through. Zurax appeared again, his blue skin now tinged with purple in what they guessed was anger or frustration. "Your trickery will not save you. Perhaps you need a more convincing demonstration of our power." He turned again. "Have warships 3, 7, and 12 target the lead vessel. Full barrage." As the transmission ended, Blackwood sighed. "They're really determined to make a point, aren't they?" This time, 3 Taxian ships moved into position and fired simultaneously. Multiple energy beams struck the Frontier Spirit's shields, creating a spectacular light show but doing no damage. Sullivan checked his readings again. Shield integrity at 99.2%. At this rate, they could fire for days without getting through. "This is getting ridiculous," Blackwood said. "Martinez, open a channel to the Admiral." When Zurax's face appeared on screen again, his 4 eyes were wide with disbelief. "Admiral," Blackwood said calmly, "I suggest we all take a breath before this goes any further. Your weapons aren't affecting our ships, and we have no desire to demonstrate our own capabilities if we don't have to." "Impossible!" Zurax shouted. "No technology can withstand the combined might of 3 Imperial warships." "And yet, here we are," Blackwood replied with a shrug. "Look, we're not your enemies. We didn't even know you existed until today. Why don't we talk instead of trading shots?" Lieutenant Peter Donovan at the tactical station leaned toward Blackwood. "Commander, they might need a small demonstration to take us seriously. Nothing harmful, just enough to show we're not bluffing." Blackwood considered this. "What do you have in mind, Lieutenant?" "A precision EM pulse targeted at their weapon systems. Temporary shutdown, no permanent damage." Blackwood nodded slowly. "Admiral," he addressed Zurax, "we came in peace and would prefer to keep it that way. But if you insist on continuing this display, we'll be forced to respond. I assure you, none of us wants that." "Your confidence borders on madness," Zurax replied. "Very well. All ships, target the human vessels, and fire at will." As the Taxian fleet prepared to fire, Blackwood sighed. "They're not giving us much choice. Donovan, prepare your pulse but target only the flagship's weapons. Let's keep this measured." "Pulse ready, Commander," Donovan reported moments later. Fire. A nearly invisible wave of energy shot from the Frontier Spirit toward the Taxian flagship. It struck with no visible effect at first, but seconds later, all the weapon ports on, the massive ship went dark. On the view screen, they could see Zurax shouting at his crew as control panels shut down around him. When he realized what was happening, he turned to the transmission with fury and disbelief in his 4 eyes. "What have you done to my ship?" "Just temporarily disabled your weapons, Admiral," Blackwood explained. "They'll come back online in about 20 minutes. No permanent damage, just a timeout so we can talk sensibly." The other Taxian ships held their fire, clearly shocked by what they'd just witnessed. "This is impossible," Zurax said, his voice quieter now. "Your vessels are smaller, fewer in number. How could you possess such technology?" Dr. Bell stepped into view beside Blackwood. "Admiral, it appears our civilizations developed along very different technological paths. What seems impossible to you is simply the direction our science took." Zurax stared at them silently for several seconds. "The Emperor will hear of this," he finally said. The transmission cut off abruptly. They watched as the Taxian fleet regrouped around their disabled flagship. "They're retreating," Martinez reported. As the 30 ships slowly moved away, Blackwood smiled slightly. "Not running away exactly. More like a strategic withdrawal to regroup and reconsider." "What now, Commander?" Franklin asked. "Now?" Blackwood looked at his bridge crew. "Now we follow at a respectful distance and prepare for round 2. Something tells me Admiral Zurax isn't the type to accept a lesson in humility without a fight." Sullivan chuckled. "Did you see their faces when their weapons didn't work? I haven't seen anyone that shocked since my brother tried to deep fry a turkey and set the garage on fire." The bridge crew laughed, breaking the tension as the Frontier Spirit and its companion ships set course to follow the retreating Taxian fleet at a safe distance. Their first contact with an alien civilization hadn't gone as planned, but it certainly had been memorable. As the human ships moved forward, Blackwood couldn't help but wonder what the next encounter would bring. One thing was certain: the Taxian Empire had just discovered that humanity wasn't as primitive as they had assumed. Admiral Zurax paced the bridge of his flagship, the Imperial Fist. His 4 eyes constantly shifted between the damage reports and the small fleet of human ships that followed at a distance. The weapon systems had come back online, as the humans promised, but his pride had not recovered so quickly. "Sub-Commander Vell, what do our scans tell us about their technology?" Zurax demanded. The smaller Taxian officer looked uncomfortable. "Admiral, our scans cannot penetrate their defensive barriers. Whatever shields they use, they operate on principles unknown to us." Zurax slammed his fist against a control panel. "Impossible." The Taxian Empire has the most advanced technology in the 17 systems. Apparently not, sir, Vel said quietly. Perhaps we should consider a diplomatic approach. If we could learn from them, Zurax hissed. We do not learn from lesser species. They learn from us or they perish. On the Frontier Spirit, Commander Blackwood held a meeting with the captains of the other 4 human ships. The holographic projections of Captain Nancy Rodriguez of the Artemis, Captain Ben Howard of the Pathfinder, Captain Maria Garcia of the Discovery, and Captain William Chen of the Horizon stood around the conference table. They're regrouping, but not leaving, Blackwood explained. Dr. Bell has analyzed their technology, and she's found something interesting. Dr. Catherine Bell stepped forward. The Taxian ships use an energy system we abandoned 200 years ago. They've refined it, certainly, but it's fundamentally inefficient. Their weapons are impressive by the standards of that technology, but compared to ours, she shrugged. Like bringing a musket to a laser fight, Captain Howard remarked. Exactly, Bell nodded. What's more interesting is their lack of shields. They rely entirely on thick hull armor. Captain Rodriguez frowned. How did they build an empire of 17 systems with such outdated technology? Numbers, replied Captain Chen. Did you see their fleet? 30 ships just to investigate an energy signature. Imagine what they send when they want to conquer, Blackwood nodded. We need to prepare for their next move. They seem like the type to double down rather than admit defeat. Back on the Imperial Fist, Admiral Zurax received a communication from Emperor Kraz himself. The Emperor's image flickered above the command console, his 6 eyes narrowed in anger. Admiral, explain to me how 5 tiny ships made a fool of the Imperial fleet, the Emperor demanded. Zurax bowed deeply. Your Majesty, these humans possess technology that develops along different lines than ours. Their defensive capabilities are unexpected. I don't want excuses, Admiral. I want results. The other species in our empire are watching. If word spreads that we were humiliated by newcomers, rebellions could begin. I understand, Your Majesty. I will not fail you again. See that you don't. The 7th Fleet is being diverted to your position. 200 ships should be enough to crush these humans, whatever their technology. After the transmission ended, Sub-Commander Vel approached cautiously. Admiral, 200 ships against 5 seems excessive. It is not about what is needed, Vel. It is about what is seen. The Empire must show overwhelming force. Meanwhile, Captain Garcia of the Discovery was conducting closer scans of the Taxian ships. Commander Blackwood, you need to see this, she said over the communication link. I've detected communication signals between the Taxian flagship and what appears to be their central government. They're bringing in reinforcements, a lot of them. Lieutenant Martinez intercepted and translated the Taxian communications. She's right, Commander. Something called the 7th Fleet is heading our way. Approximately 200 warships, Sullivan whistled. 200? Talk about overkill. No, Blackwood said thoughtfully. It's about saving face. Admiral Zurax can't return to his Emperor empty-handed, and he can't admit that 5 human ships could stand against his 30. Dr. Bell frowned. Even with our technology, 200 ships could overwhelm our defenses through sheer volume of fire. Then we need options, Blackwood said. Sullivan Bell, can you develop something that could disable multiple ships at once, non-lethal like before? The engineer and scientist exchanged glances. We might be able to modify the EM pulse to cover a wider area, Sullivan suggested. But we'd need to get closer to their fleet. How much closer? Blackwood asked. Close. Enough to be dangerous, Bell admitted. The pulse weakens with distance. Lieutenant Donovan spoke up from Tactical. Commander, I have another idea. What if we don't wait for them to gather their fleet? What if we approach now, just the Frontier Spirit, as a diplomatic vessel? Blackwood considered this. You're suggesting we talk to them while they're still off balance. Exactly. They expect us to either attack or run. If we approach peacefully, it might confuse them enough to listen. Martinez looked up from her communications panel. Commander, we're Being hailed, it's Admiral Zurax again. Put him through, Blackwood ordered. Admiral Zurax's face appeared on screen, looking more composed than before. Commander Blackwood, I wish to discuss terms. Blackwood raised an eyebrow. Terms, Admiral? We're not at war. You have violated Imperial space and disabled an Imperial warship. These are acts of aggression. We disabled your weapons temporarily after you fired on us. Blackwood countered calmly. Where I come from, firing first is the act of aggression. Zurax's upper eyes blinked rapidly. Regardless, the situation has changed. The 7th Fleet approaches. 200 Imperial warships will arrive within 3 of your Earth days. I am authorized to offer you terms of surrender that will spare your crews. Blackwood leaned forward, in his chair. And if we choose not to surrender, then you will be destroyed, of course. Sullivan suppressed a laugh. Blackwood shot him a warning glance before turning back to Zurax. Admiral, let me propose an alternative. I will come to your ship with a small team to discuss peaceful relations between our peoples. No weapons, just talk. Zurax looked surprised. You would place yourself at our mercy? I would show good faith. Sometimes that's needed to begin understanding. The Admiral was silent for a moment. Very well. You may bring 2 others. You will be searched for weapons. Agreed. We'll prepare a shuttle. After the transmission ended, Martinez looked at Blackwood in disbelief. Commander, you can't be serious. It could be a trap. Of course it's a trap, Blackwood replied. But it's also an opportunity. Bell, Sullivan, you're with me. We need to see their technology up close. Who will command while you're gone? Asked Lieutenant Donovan. You will, Lieutenant. If we're not back in 3 hours, or if they make any aggressive moves, take the fleet to a safe distance and wait for the diplomatic vessel Earth is sending. As the shuttle prepared to depart for the Imperial Fist, Blackwood looked out at the massive alien vessel. Despite everything, he felt a surge of excitement. This was why they had come into space, to meet new civilizations, even difficult ones like the Taxians. Ready for this? He asked Bell and Sullivan as they boarded the small craft. Sullivan grinned. Ready to see some outdated alien tech? Absolutely. Bell nodded more seriously. This could be our best chance to understand them before their reinforcements arrive. The shuttle bay doors opened, and the small craft flew toward the waiting Taxian. Flagship. Behind them, the Frontier Spirit and the rest of the human fleet watched cautiously, weapons ready but not armed. The first real diplomatic contact between humanity and the Taxian Empire was about to begin, and despite the tension, Blackwood couldn't help but smile at the absurdity of it all. 5 human ships had managed to back a galactic empire into a corner, simply because humans had taken a different path in their technological development. The human shuttle docked with the Taxian flagship, the Imperial Fist. Commander Blackwood, Dr. Bell, and Chief Engineer Sullivan stepped out into a large hangar bay filled with Taxian soldiers. The aliens stood in perfect formation, their blue skin and 4 eyes giving them an intimidating appearance despite their obvious nervousness. Admiral Zurax waited at the end of the formed ranks, his elaborate uniform now even more decorated than during their video conversations. Next to him stood Sub-Commander Vell, looking somewhat more relaxed than his superior. Welcome aboard the pride of the Taxian fleet, Zurax said stiffly. You will surrender any weapons before proceeding. Blackwood spread his arms. As agreed, we came unarmed. Feel free to scan us. A Taxian officer approached with a handheld device and waved it over the 3 humans. He seemed surprised when it showed no weapons. They are clean, Admiral, the officer reported. Very well. Follow me to the command center. Zurax turned and walked away, clearly expecting the humans to follow. Without question. As they walked through the massive ship, Sullivan couldn't help but look around with professional interest. The corridors were larger than necessary, with ornate decorations that served no practical purpose. The engineering systems visible through occasional transparent panels were bulky and inefficient. Your ship is impressive, Sullivan said, trying to be diplomatic despite what he was seeing. The Imperial Fist is the most powerful warship in the Taxian fleet, Zurax stated proudly. "It has destroyed over 50 enemy vessels in battle." "Fascinating," Bell replied. "How old is this ship?" "It has served the Empire for 70 Imperial cycles," Zurax answered. "About 40 of your Earth years." Sullivan exchanged a quick glance with Blackwood. By human standards, the ship was practically ancient. Earth vessels rarely served more than 15 years before being replaced with more advanced models. They reached the command center, a vast room with at least 50 officers, working at stations arranged in concentric circles around a central platform where Admiral Zurax took his position. Displays showed the human ship still waiting at a distance. "Now, Commander," Zurax said, "we will discuss the terms of your surrender." Blackwood smiled politely. "Actually, Admiral, we came to discuss peaceful relations and cultural exchange. As I mentioned before, we have no interest in surrender." Zurax's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of irritation. "Perhaps you do not understand your situation. The 7th Fleet will arrive soon. 200 warships against your 5. "Yes, you mentioned that," Blackwood nodded. "But I thought we might find a solution that doesn't involve either side resorting to further shows of force." Sub-Commander Vell stepped forward slightly. "Admiral, if I may, perhaps we should consider what the humans might offer. Their technology clearly follows different principles than ours." Zurax shot his subordinate a warning look, but then seemed to reconsider. "What could you possibly offer the Taxian Empire that we do not already possess?" Dr. Bell spoke up. "Knowledge, innovation, new ways of thinking. From what we've seen of your technology, our civilizations developed along completely different paths. There's much we could learn from each other." "Learn? From you?" Zurax scoffed. "The Taxian Empire does not need lessons from newcomers to space." Sullivan couldn't help himself. "With respect, Admiral, your energy systems are running at maybe 30% efficiency compared to ours. Your weapons use twice the power to deliver half the impact. And you don't have shields at all. Just thick armor that weighs your ships down." An uncomfortable silence fell over the command center. Several Taxian officers looked up from their stations with expressions that ranged from offended to curious. "What my colleague means," Blackwood said smoothly, "is that our different approaches to similar problems could benefit both our peoples. We're not here to judge or criticize." Zurax's skin darkened with what the humans now recognized as anger or embarrassment. "You speak of benefits, yet you disabled our weapons with ease. Why should we trust you?" "Because we could have destroyed your ship instead of temporarily disabling it," Blackwood answered honestly. "We chose the path of least harm." Before Zurax could respond, a Taxian officer called out from one of the stations. "Admiral, we're receiving an emergency transmission from the Imperial Palace." "Put it through," Zurax ordered. A large screen lit, up with the image of a Taxian in even more elaborate attire than Zurax. It was Emperor Kraz, and he looked extremely agitated. "Admiral Zurax, the 7th Fleet is being diverted. The Centauri Collective has launched an attack on our outlying colonies. All available ships are being sent to defend our territory." Zurax looked stricken. "But Your Majesty, the human situation will have to wait," Kraz interrupted. "The Collective has somehow developed new weapons technology. Our usual tactics are failing. Settle this human matter quickly and rejoin the main fleet." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Admiral Zurax staring at the blank screen in shock. "It seems," Sub-Commander Vell said carefully, "that we are not the only ones facing technological surprises." Blackwood looked at Zurax with genuine concern. "Admiral, it appears you have more pressing matters than our small fleet. If your empire is under attack, perhaps this is the perfect time to establish peaceful relations with Earth rather than creating another front in your conflict." Zurax turned to the humans, his expression unreadable. "The Centauri Collective has been a minor annoyance for decades. If they have suddenly developed advanced weapons—" He trailed off, clearly calculating his options. Sullivan leaned closer to Bell and whispered, "10 credits says someone else figured out shields before they did." Bell gave him a warning look before addressing Zurax. Admiral, if you'd allow me to examine the reports from your battle with these Centauri forces, I might be able to offer insights. Different perspective, fresh eyes. Zurax seemed to struggle with his pride, but practicality won out. Show Dr. Bell the tactical reports, he ordered a nearby officer. Then he turned to Blackwood. This changes nothing. Your ships are still in Imperial space uninvited. Consider us invited now, Blackwood suggested, as potential allies rather than subjects. While Bell reviewed the Centauri battle data with several interested Taxian officers gathering around her, Sullivan managed to engage some of the engineering staff in conversation. Despite their initial reluctance, the Taxian engineers couldn't hide their curiosity about human technology. Blackwood and Zurax stood at the command platform, watching the impromptu cultural exchange unfold. Your people seem eager to learn, Blackwood observed. They forget themselves, Zurax replied, but without real conviction. Or perhaps they remember what made your empire great in the first place, Blackwood suggested. No civilization becomes powerful without curiosity and adaptation. Zurax was quiet for a long moment. The 7th Fleet will not come, he finally said. We have only the 30 ships in my battle group to deal with your 5. Or, Blackwood said, we have 35 ships to face a common problem. This Centauri collective sounds like they might be expanding their ambitions. For the first time, a hint of genuine interest showed in Zurax's 4 eyes. You would consider an alliance? With an empire you just met? We would consider helping people in need, Blackwood answered. That's something humans are surprisingly good at. Back on the frontier spirit, Lieutenant Donovan paced the bridge. It had been almost 3 hours since Commander Blackwood, Dr. Bell, and Sullivan had departed for the Taxian flagship. The communication link between the shuttle and the ship remained open but silent. Any change in the Taxian fleet's position? Donovan asked Martinez at the communication station. No, sir. They remain in formation, but I've detected increased communication between their ships. Something's happening. Incoming transmission from the Taxian flagship, announced the officer at the sensor station. Put it through, Donovan ordered. The view screen showed Commander Blackwood standing beside Admiral Zurax on the Taxian command deck. The sight of them side by side without obvious tension was surprising. Lieutenant Donovan, Blackwood said, the situation has changed. The Taxian Empire is facing an attack from another group called the Centauri Collective. We've agreed to share some technical knowledge with the Taxians in exchange for information about this region of space. I see, sir, Donovan replied, trying to hide his surprise. I'm sending Dr. Bell back to coordinate with Captain Rodriguez on the Artemis. Her science team will begin working with Taxian engineers on shield technology. Sullivan will stay here to help implement it. Zurax stepped forward, looking somewhat uncomfortable. Lieutenant, your commander has agreed to help us against a mutual threat. The Centauri Collective has acquired technology similar to yours and is using it against our outer colonies. Similar to ours? Donovan asked. Dr. Bell appeared in the frame. Similar but cruder. Based on what I've seen of their attack patterns, they've developed a basic shield system, but it's not as advanced as ours. They're targeting Taxian ships because the Taxians have no defense against it. And you trust this information, Commander? Donovan asked cautiously. I've verified it personally, Blackwood assured him. The Taxians have shared their full military database with us. The threat is real, and it could eventually reach Earth if left unchecked. After the transmission ended, Martinez looked at Donovan. Do you think the commander is making the right call? We barely know these Taxians. He hasn't steered us wrong yet, Donovan replied. And if there's another power out here developing shield technology, we need to know about it. On Earth, news of the contact with the Taxian Empire reached the United Earth government. President Samantha Rivera called an emergency meeting of the Space Exploration Council. So Commander Blackwood has committed to helping this empire that just days ago was threatening to destroy our ships? Rivera asked, looking around the table at her advisors. Admiral George Hayes nodded. Yes, Madam President. Based on the data they've transmitted, it seems like a reasonable course of action. The Centauri Collective poses a potential threat to Earth's future expansion. What do we know about them? Rivera asked. Very little, replied Dr. Eddie Johnson, the Council's xenobiologist. According to Taxian records, they're a group of 6 planets that have resisted Taxian rule for decades. Until now, they've been considered a minor nuisance. And suddenly they have shield technology? Rivera frowned. Not just shields, Hayes said. Their weapons have improved too. The timing is suspicious. You think someone else is helping them? Rivera asked. It's possible. Or they could have captured and reverse-engineered Taxian technology. Hayes pulled up a holographic display showing the region of space. Either way, Commander Blackwood's decision to collaborate with the Taxians gives us access to information about dozens of species we'd otherwise have to discover one by one. Rivera studied the display. What about the diplomatic vessel we were preparing to send? The olive branch is ready for departure, Hayes confirmed. Ambassador Paul Mitchell has been briefed on the situation. Send them, Rivera decided. But add a military escort. I want to show both strength and willingness to talk. Meanwhile, aboard the Imperial Fist, Sullivan worked with the Taxian engineers to adapt human shield technology to their ships. The cultural differences were as challenging as the technical ones. No, that won't work, Sullivan explained to the lead Taxian engineer. Your power systems can't handle the energy flow. We need to redesign the entire distribution network. The Taxian, named Kral, looked offended. The Imperial power systems are the most advanced in the 17 systems. Sullivan sighed. Look, I'm not trying to insult you, it's just physics. Your system is built for stability and longevity. Ours is built for efficiency and adaptability. Different design philosophies. Kral reluctantly nodded. How do we proceed? We start from scratch, Sullivan said. Show me your most basic power unit and we'll build up from there. In another part of the ship, Admiral Zurax and Commander Blackwood reviewed the latest reports from the Centauri front. 3 more colonies lost, Zurax said grimly. Their shields make our weapons useless, just as yours did. The difference is, we're willing to help you, Blackwood reminded him. Dr. Bell will have shield prototypes ready to test within days. Days may be too few, Zurax replied. The collective is moving faster than ever before. Almost as if they knew you'd be distracted by us, Blackwood mused. Zurax's 4 eyes widened slightly. You suggest this was coordinated? It's just a thought. The timing is convenient. You detect unknown ships, send a significant portion of your fleet to investigate, and suddenly a previously minor enemy launches a major offensive with new technology. But how would they know about your arrival? We only detected your energy signatures days ago. Blackwood shrugged. Maybe they've been watching both of us, or maybe someone is playing a longer game. Back on the Artemis, Dr. Bell worked with Captain Rodriguez and her science team to develop shield generators that would work with Taxian technology. The problem isn't just technical, Bell explained as they examined Taxian schematics. It's cultural. The Taxians build everything to last for decades without modification. The idea of regularly upgrading systems is foreign to them. That explains their shock at our technology, Rodriguez noted. We've gone through 5 generations of shield improvements since we first developed them. Exactly. And their social structure reinforces it. Innovation is discouraged in favor of perfecting existing systems. Admiral Zurax had to get Imperial permission just to let us try this adaptation. Rodriguez looked thoughtful. If that's true across their empire, they must be extremely vulnerable to new threats. Like the Centauri Collective, Bell agreed. Which makes me wonder how the Collective managed to develop shields when the much larger Taxian Empire didn't. Outside help, Rodriguez suggested. That's what I'm afraid of, Bell replied. And if someone is helping the Collective, who's to say we're not walking into a much bigger conflict than we realized? As human and Taxian scientists worked together, a new message arrived from Earth. The diplomatic vessel Olive Branch was on its way, along with 3 warships as escorts. Ambassador Mitchell would arrive in 5 days to formalize relations with the Taxian Empire. Commander Blackwood received the news with mixed feelings. On one hand, having official diplomatic support would strengthen their position. On the other, hand. The situation was changing so rapidly that in 5 days everything might be different. The real test would come tomorrow, when the first Taxian ship equipped with human-designed shields would face a simulated weapon attack. If it worked, the balance of power in this sector of space would shift dramatically. If it failed, both humans and Taxians might find themselves facing a new and mysterious enemy without adequate defenses. The test day arrived with tension filling both the human and Taxian ships. The Imperial Shield, a Taxian cruiser retrofitted with human shield technology, floated in space between the two fleets. Admiral Zurax insisted on being aboard during the test, a decision that surprised Commander Blackwood. "Are you sure you want to be on the test ship?" Blackwood asked over the communication link from the Frontier Spirit. "We've only had 3 days to adapt our technology to your systems. If I ask my crews to trust this human technology, I must show that I trust it first," Zurax replied simply. Sullivan stood beside the Admiral on the Imperial Shield's bridge, making final adjustments to the control systems. "The shield generator is online and stable, Admiral. We're ready whenever you are." Zurax nodded. "Begin the test." A Taxian warship moved into position and aimed its weapons at the Imperial Shield. The weapons officer looked nervous as he received the order to fire. "Full power," Zurax commanded. "This must be a real test." The Taxian warship fired its most powerful beam directly at the Imperial Shield. Everyone watched as the energy struck, an invisible barrier around the ship, spreading out in ripples of light before dissipating completely. Sullivan checked the readings on his tablet. "Shield holding at 97% efficiency. That's even better than I expected with the power constraints." For the first time since they met, Admiral Zurax smiled. It was an odd expression with his 4 eyes, but unmistakably one of relief and satisfaction. "It works," he said, almost in disbelief. "Our ships can now defend against energy weapons. And this is just the beginning," Sullivan assured him. "With time, we can improve the efficiency and strength even further." Word spread quickly through the Taxian fleet. Crews that had been skeptical of the humans now looked at them with newfound respect. The shield technology that had made the Taxians laugh at the humans just days ago was now their greatest hope against the Centauri threat. Back on Earth, Ambassador Paul Mitchell prepared to board the Olive Branch. President Rivera gave him final instructions before his departure. "Remember, Ambassador, this is no longer just about establishing contact with a new civilization. The situation with the Centauri Collective changes everything. We need to know who they are and who might be supporting them." Mitchell nodded. "I understand, Madam President. Do you suspect a specific power?" "Our intelligence suggests there might be another empire beyond Taxian space, one that's been watching humanity's expansion with interest. We've detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of our long-range scans. You think they're using the collective to test the Taxians without revealing themselves. And now they'll be watching how we interact with the Taxians too. Be careful, Paul. What started as a simple first contact mission has become much more complex." 4 days after the successful shield test, 15 Taxian ships had been retrofitted with human shield technology. Admiral Zurax called a war council with Commander Blackwood and the captains of all human ships. "The Centauri forces have pushed deeper into Imperial territory," Zurax reported, showing a map of the region. "They now control 7 of our outer colonies and have destroyed 32 Imperial vessels." "What about the retrofitted ships?" asked Captain Howard of the Pathfinder. "The 3 we sent to the front lines successfully repelled a Centauri attack yesterday," Zurax replied. "But it revealed something concerning." He pulled up footage of the battle. The humans watched as Centauri ships fired on the shielded Taxian vessels. The shields held, but the Centauri quickly adapted their attack pattern, focusing fire on specific points rather than broad attacks. "They're learning," Dr. Bell observed. "That's not the behavior of a previously minor power suddenly given new technology. They're being advised by someone who understands shield dynamics." Commander Blackwood frowned. "Admiral, what do you know about the space beyond Centauri territory?" "Very little," Zurax admitted. "We believed it to be empty for many light years. Our long-range scans showed no signs of advanced civilizations." Maybe your scans weren't looking for the right signatures, Sullivan suggested. Just like you couldn't scan through our shields because they operated on principles you weren't familiar with. A Taxian officer rushed into the room. Admiral, we've detected multiple ships entering the system. They're not Taxian or Centauri design. Everyone moved quickly to the command center. On the main display, strange ships unlike any they had seen before appeared at the edge of sensor range. They were sleek, almost organic in design, and moved with incredible precision. 17 vessels, reported the Taxian sensor officer. Unknown configuration. Are they Centauri allies? Zurax asked. I don't think so, Blackwood said, studying the screen. Look at how they're positioning themselves. They're observing both. Our fleet's not joining either side. A transmission came through on all channels, audio only. The voice spoke in perfect Taxian, then repeated in perfect English. Taxian Empire and human explorers. We are the Vorathi observers. We have monitored your interaction with great interest. The trial is now complete. Trial? Zurax looked confused. What trial? For centuries we have watched species in this sector develop, the voice continued. The Taxian Empire expanded through intimidation rather than innovation. The Centauri collective showed more promise, but lacked resources. Humanity developed along unique lines, favoring efficiency and cooperation. Blackwood stepped forward. Are you saying you engineered this entire situation, the Centauri attacks? We provided the Centauri with basic shield designs, yes. We wished to see how both they and the Taxians would respond. But your arrival was unexpected, human vessels. Your willingness to share technology rather than use it for domination is noteworthy. You put lives at risk for an experiment? Admiral Zurax was furious. Imperial citizens died in those attacks. A regrettable necessity to determine which species should join the Galactic Council, the Vorathi replied. For 10,000 years we have guided the development of promising civilizations. The Taxians had become stagnant, the Centauri too aggressive. But the human approach to the situation has shown us something new. And what is that? Blackwood asked. That technological advantage need not lead to domination. That cooperation can replace conquest. The human ships laughed when confronted by Taxian weapons, yet offered help when the Taxians faced a real threat. This is the behavior of a species ready for the wider galaxy. The Vorathi ships moved closer, revealing their true size. Each one dwarfed even the largest Taxian vessel. Commander Blackwood, Admiral Zurax, representatives will arrive to discuss humanity's and the Taxian Empire's place in the galactic community. The Centauri attacks will cease. They have served their purpose. 3. Transmission ended, leaving humans and Taxians staring at each other in stunned silence. Did we just pass some kind of cosmic test? Sullivan finally asked. It appears so, Zurax replied, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. Blackwood shook his head and laughed softly. We came looking for new life and new civilizations, and instead we found ourselves in the middle of a galactic examination, which we passed, Dr. Bell added. As the Olive Branch arrived with Ambassador Mitchell aboard, the human and Taxian fleets faced the Vorathi ships together. What had begun with the Taxian Empire confronting human ships and humanity laughing at their weapons had evolved into something far more significant, humanity's first step into a complex interstellar community. And it had all started because humans had taken a different path in their technological development, one that valued innovation over tradition and cooperation over conquest, a path that had made them laugh when threatened by a galactic empire, not out of arrogance, but out of the simple joy of discovering how wide and wonderful the universe truly was.